Welcome to the Not Your Average Investor Show. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez, with my co-host, Gregg Cohen, co-founder of JWB.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, and today's guest makes the word dynamic feel lazy. He is a prolific public speaker, a best-selling author, Naval Academy graduate, former Navy pilot. He is an active philanthropist on the boards of Best Buddies and Rethreaded. He leads one of the nation's largest home inspection companies in home pro inspections and monument commercial building inspections. He is a fashion icon and a social media superstar.
Champion of the Blue Blazer.
Champion of the Blue Blazer. Welcome to the show, Wally Conway. How does it feel to have everybody dressing like you in Jacksonville?
It's great. Bookends of Blue Blazers.
You showed us the way, brother. I appreciate this.
I mean, literally handfuls of professionals in Jacksonville have taken up this look because of you.
It is catching on, but a uniform is a comfortable thing. Having gone to the Naval Academy, been a Navy pilot, I got up every day. I never had to think about what to wear. Mm-hmm. I retired in '94, started my company. I thought, what am I supposed to wear? I just settled in on the blue blazer and the khakis, and here we are 26 years later. I do own more than one of these, but it's become a bit of a...
And your legion of fans has taken it up.
It is.
And imagine after being on this show, just imagine the inspiration that you're going to get.
I think Brooks Brothers is probably going to send me an endorsement contract after this.
You're sleeping on this, Brooks Brothers. I mean, influencer right here. Wally, tell me a little bit about your business.
So when I retired in '94, it occurred to me I had never been on a job interview. I never had a real job. I never wrote a resume. And I thought this idea of finding a job, that's intimidating, and it seemed less frightening to start something than to beg somebody to let me participate in their thing.
There you go.
So during my time on active duty, I got putzing around with houses a little bit. I was a flipper before there was HDTV. I'd done a little renovating, built a few buildings. I ended up with a contractor's license. So when it came time to retire, I went, I'm afraid to go get a job, I'll start a business. So I thought about being a real estate agent. I thought about being a mortgage guy. I thought about all these different things. And there were 9 home inspection companies in the phone book. Explain to him about the phone book. Back in the day. So there were 9 home
That's what I put my stuff on when, I need the lead.
When you went to grandma's for Thanksgiving, you probably sat on the yellow pages. So there were only 9 home inspectors, and it was all chuck in a truck. There were no businesses. Mm-hmm. And we started out, and here we are about 40,000 houses and buildings later.
It's pretty amazing.
It's been fun.
40,000. So this is a business that normally there's not a lot of scaled home inspection companies, right?
In '94 there were none.
There were none.
In '94, the largest home inspection company in the country probably didn't gross $1 million a year. Scroll ahead 25 years, the largest companies in the country might hit 10 million. Mm-hmm. So in a true scaling sense, it's ripe. It looks like where dumpsters looked before Hazinga, and where a few other things that were all mom and pops suddenly scaled. We're ripe for that over the next 1 to 5 years.
So you make it sound like it was less intimidating to start a business than it was to go out and get a job, but we've all started businesces here.
Well,
it takes a certain amount of
guts.
This
is rare air, but yeah,
it scared the hell out of me. I mean, now I know you were certainly employable. I mean, what did you look at when you said I'm going to start a business and said, This is going to be an opportunity that is going to allow me to wear blue blazers for the next 26 years.
What attracted me to the home inspection side, to be very honest, was a zero barrier to entry. There was no capital required. There was no licensing required. I had a flashlight and a clipboard.
Mm-hmm.
Went out and got some business cards. So we're talking, $50. I was all in.
Nice.
It's no longer quite that way.
Right.
But that was why.
Hopefully they've built up huge barriers of entry now, since you're well established.
Well, we went from, I was number 10 in the region.
Yeah.
There's now more than 1,000 licensed home inspectors.
Oh my goodness.
Within 100 miles here of the JWB World Headquarters.
Wow.
Yeah.
But there's only one that we go to, Wally.
Well, I'm grateful for that. It's been a good relationship for a long time. Yeah.
I have to assume that one of the reasons why you have done so well is because you're such a master marketer, right? Like I see you, I see everything from this blue blazer. To me, this is branding, right? Like
certainly so. Right,
and I see you in the media. I've seen you. I know that you have a history. You have some kind of like correlation to radio, and you have a radio show, and you have this other show. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you kind of progress from being a home inspector that's a clipboard and flashlight guy to an on-air, on-screen kind of
We
personality?
still have flashlights, just
Yeah.
for the record. They're LEDs now.
Yeah.
But really, it was a mindset position. The traditional home inspector from back in the day was transitioning from the trades into home inspecting. The tools started to get heavy, and they wanted to do something different. I was the outlier. I was a Naval Academy graduate, been a Navy pilot. I was interested in it. I didn't come from that same place. But I did come from a place of learning and talking and speaking and whatnot. So it was a whole different approach. So while the traditional home inspector would see, how many new books can I read about the electric panel? I was reading E-Myth. I actually had lunch with Michael Gerber the year I started the
Yeah, you
company.
mentioned that. What
So
an honor.
I was reading business development books and personal development books and marketing books. J. Conrad Levinson, Guerrilla Marketing. I met him and was on a team with him at one point. But I was reading those kinds of things, and I started doing things that were ludicrous in the home inspection universe, yet were normal in honest business development. So that's how it started, just reading and thinking a little
Did
different.
you ruffle feathers in the home inspection world at that time, since you were doing things that were different than the normal?
Not at first.
No.
It was, back at that period of time, everyone was collaborative and helpful, and everyone loved each other. And then when an individual started to rise above the pack, well, then you weren't so cute and clever and fun anymore.
Right.
Then you must be doing something wrong.
Yeah, right.
So you've been through this. I know you've been through this.
Yeah.
If you're evolving in a peer group
Yeah.
and you start to distance the peer group, they have to come up with a reason why. And that why is usually or often casting a negative in your direction rather than looking inward and say, what can I do to compete with JWB?
I mean, it happened pre-social media? It did that? Wow.
Yeah. They put soap on your windows.
And nowadays, it's pretty easy to become your own media company because of social media. But you did this before that, right? So, like, how did you kind of pierce that veneer of getting this kind of coverage and understanding how to
I
get
got
it?
lucky and said yes.
Okay.
You know how that goes.
Yeah.
Luck comes your way, and some people say no, and sometimes you say yes.
Sure.
So I had a home inspector buddy in Falls Church, Virginia, who was asked in '99-ish if he wanted to host a show on HGTV. And he said no, but he knew some guys who might, and I was one of those guys. So I got invited up there. We screen tested for a show called House Detective, and they didn't pick any of the home inspectors. They picked some young cute guy with a pompadour. And then discovered he didn't know anything about houses. So they suddenly were then reaching out to guys like me. So I get a phone call. The lady's name is Angela Murr, the producer at HGTV. She still works at Scripps. And she said, "Hey, Wally, it's me. We're looking for houses in Jacksonville." I said, "Okay." And they were going to Miami, your hometown. They were going to Miami. They had 4 houses set up to shoot. They were one-day shoots. And she said, "We need 1 house for Monday." I said, "Okay, ma'am. I'll find 5. Come on down." She said, No. We want 1. I said, "Okay, I'll find 5. Come on down." And she said, "One more time, I'll tell you this slower. We want 1 house in Jacksonville." I said, "Okay, ma'am, slower. I'll find 5, and you pick the one you want." And she said, "Okay." I picked her up on Sunday, toured the 5 houses. They canceled the Miami shoot, and I did 4 more years on HGTV.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, so that was it. It was a dumb luck, yet I was, whatever you might call that, assertive, or I was very Pablo-esque, I guess, at that point.
Pablo.
I was Pablo-esque before there was Pablo.
That's high praise right there.
But that's how that happened.
So were you strategically looking for opportunities there? Like, because that's a huge leap to take for somebody who's
Yeah.
not, we actually were auditioning for Flip This House and a few of those shows as well. And I remember
Did a cute guy get the job?
some other cute guy with
Some other cute guy. Did you hear what he said? Another cute guy.
Pompadour, is that what you called it? What was that thing that you were telling
That
me?
little updo thing you got in the front?
Yeah, oh, okay.
That's a
Pompadour.
pompadour.
Good. Glad that I nailed that.
Yeah. You were aware of that, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was Spanish.
Okay.
So, but when that opportunity was coming, my business partners were more ready to jump on it. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was probably that guy that was going to say no, although we wouldn't have known because they didn't pick us.
Yeah.
So it takes a real kind of strategic and being open to that and that type of a role change for you. Was that always the vision for you?
No, strategic was real flattering, but thank you. It was more like, oh, that looks cool. That'll be fun. Let's go see what that does. And you both know this. You've learned this through your own careers. When you say yes to media once, and it goes well, and the media people understand, wow, If I got a question on housing rentals, if I call Gregg, I can get my one-liner, I'm in, I'm out, you can show up and get it done. You know the same thing. And that started to catch on, that said, hey, if we call Wally, he understands the drill and it gets done.
Making it easy on them.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not about whatever's my agenda for that particular show. My agenda has to be causing that news person or that producer their job to be easy and them to look great. And the other thing I tell them is, I will never embarrass you.
Yeah.
So
You just embarrassed me. I don't believe you.
You're not the producer. No, but it's really important. What happens is somebody gets a media opportunity and they're like, this is my big break to tell what I got to tell and do my whole thing. That's not the way to play that. The way to play that is to ask that producer, what's important to you? What are you trying to accomplish? What are the hot buttons? What are you afraid of? And they're like, oh, okay, now they can relax and trust you. And then you say, and here's my agenda. Can you please put my website link in the back end? Can I mention this? Can I introduce you to Pablo or to Gregg or whatever? And you just develop a relationship. It's no different than any other business opportunity.
It's relationship building. Bring value, be of service, and you get called to more,
In
right?
some circles, they call it connecting
Connecting. I
with
do.
Pablo.
Who says that? This is not a Connect with Pablo show, Wally. This is the JWB
I know,
investor
but
show.
nonetheless, connecting is important.
I agree.
Again, bringing value to everybody else. So Wally, makes a ton of sense, right? You get this opportunity, you continue to parlay in regular media. Even in regular media, there was still an apprehension to people in evolving to social media.
Yeah.
In people of your generation, there's an apprehension to evolving to social media.
You got you.
I'm you know what I'm saying, Wally, right?
If it
Like,
wasn't for my generation,
you
you wouldn't be here.
Agreed, 100%. I'm just saying you're a positive outlier in adopting to change that is social media, both in the industry that you're in and in your age group.
Absolutely.
Ask Mr. Cohen who the first person was to introduce him to TikTok.
Wally Conway. We just did our first TikTok right before getting on camera here. He's inspirational.
Oh, that just happened.
Yeah, that just happened.
Oh, that just happened.
Amazing.
I think
So
that's
we're talking
a copyrighted statement, by the way.
Is it? So, did social media come naturally to you? Like what was it an eye-opening thing? Did you get it immediately that social media is the same kind of leverage point that you had in regular media, or how did you evolve into understanding how to
I
use that?
can't honestly say it was strategic or a breakthrough. It came onto my radar. I had already done other simple media things, so it wasn't frightening. It was, just dump this into there. And repurposing, as you both know, is so critical.
Right.
You do one thing and leverage it across 20 different places, or cut it into snippets, or cut it into stills. So it's do one thing, repurpose it, and the more channels you can repurpose in, the more leverage you get without doing any additional work.
Of course. That's what the Biz Bros here are really good at as well,
Yeah.
by the way, who I want to introduce you to. But I want to talk also about, so, I know you well, Wally, so there's all this value that I'm trying to download from your brain, and I think that this media savviness and social media savviness is one piece. Another piece that I think is really, really valuable is how you use your philanthropic efforts. When I first met you, kind of at the end of the conversation, you told me that you're this philanthropist, an aspiring philanthropist, even though you're an arrived philanthropist. But then I found out that you have this whole strategy behind how you approach philanthropy, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Well, I was involved in a mastermind group at Keller Williams World Headquarters down in Austin. And one of the participants in that was Jay Papasan, that wrote The One Thing. And he came in and he had 90 minutes to speak to us about philanthropy. And it was a head scratch when I'm thinking about it. Like, philanthropist, I'm not Bill Gates, just a guy in the neighborhood, not a philanthropist. And when I listened to him explain it, I totally understood it. And I came home and I announced to Tanya, honey, we're philanthropists. and you and I have done some interesting things together. And what you realize, no matter the size of your budget or the size of your platform, you can influence more people to do more good than you could ever do independently. So Pablo was involved with me with Best Buddies. We raised over $250,000 in one night.
No way.
We had a boatload of fun. We did a boatload of good. We met wonderful people we would not have otherwise have met. And my individual ability to donate $250,000 would be 3 lifetimes.
Right.
And once you get that mindset, and I can teach that, once you get that, you do incredible things. It's just fun.
Absolutely.
And nicer people hang around you.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, my life has very much been enriched by getting into this. But I want to talk a little bit more X's and O's of how you do it, right?
Okay.
You kind of have these like buckets that you approach it by.
Yeah.
And talk to me a little bit.
So it's about establishing a budget and a super conservative budget. Let's make believe it's $1,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Virtually everyone, certainly anyone that we regularly spend time with, could do $1,000 a year. Break that down to $100 a month. It's basically a cup of coffee a day. And imagine a circle, a pie. And one half of that pie is your one thing. It's saying, this is the most important cause to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I'm going to do with one half of my budget.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that's $500. So for me, that $500 is going to Best Buddies.
Mm-hmm.
In that next quadrant, there's 25% of my budget. That's $250. And I break that into 5 and say, what are my next 5 things? For me, it's WJCT, Wounded Warrior, Rethreaded. I've got my list of 5. And I go, okay, that's that. And now there's $50 going over there. And that next quadrant is the power quadrant, is the always say yes quadrant. So if you can imagine, and most of you guys are in the same scenario, once a week somebody says, can you? I just go, yes, send me the link. And it's $5. And I never say no. What happens is by always saying yes, you create reciprocity. So if the Home Pro Inspections is a $1,000 budget and the JWB is a $100,000 budget, when I say yes to JWB and JWB says yes to me, it's not a
quid pro quo.
that thing, dollar for dollar.
Right.
It's a, would you say yes to me? I've said yes to you. Now, the people who actually count beans one-on-one and say, well, Pablo only gave me 10 and I gave him 5 and you gave me 20, that's not the mindset. That's
Right.
not the philanthropic heart. It's, can you help me with my thing? So it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And the other thing that happens is, over time, something may go from one quadrant to the other. You evolve. Different things happen in your life. You go, and what's more important to me now is childhood cancer. And that becomes your one thing. So you're not stuck for life. It's just a mindset of giving that just works, and it just feels good, and it plays good, and you meet wonderful people. And a lot of these wonderful people we both got to spend time with, and you're like, wow, I just really feel good. That's where I was before I came here. So it was great.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So I'm hearing kind of universal truths, but apply it towards philanthropy. Number one, it's the law of influence, right? The law of reciprocity
Yes.
helps you build relationships and helps you leverage things that normally you
Yes.
wouldn't have access to. And I'm also hearing that establishing your boundary before you get there is the most powerful thing, because if you have your budget, then you're able to...
In a giving sense, absolutely. You're prepared to say yes. But in a strategic sense, strategic philanthropy, I call it what do I say? Strategic philanthropy, live longer, laugh louder, leave a legacy by building your business through strategic philanthropy. You get exposed to, you meet, and you create relationships with people in the community who never would have spent a moment with you, except for the common interest of their cause. And you get to say yes to their cause. They say yes to you, and it's just,
It just
bam.
feels good. It just feels good.
It's great. And I know you're both involved because we've been involved in things together. But there's nothing more powerful to share and grow in your business. It's more important than social media. It's more important than becoming a media maven. Is get involved in the community in a positive way, and not in a selfish, thoughtless way. But everybody is moved by something.
Absolutely.
And it's either people, pets, or the planet. I divide them into 3 groups.
That's good.
Right? It's a cause related to people. It's a
Yeah.
cause related to animals, or the planet could be buildings. It could be a particular tree or whatever. Just say, you know what I really feel for? No, what do you really feel for? And get involved, or reach out to somebody who is involved. And the next thing you know, they say, well, what is it that you do professionally? Oh, I do this. No kidding. Let me help you here. And that's not dishonest, or it's real honest.
Yeah. Well, you're constantly putting yourself in a position. A couple of things have jumped out to me to be able to say yes.
Yes.
Right. And we were talking about that on the marketing front first.
Yep.
Now we're talking about it in the philanthropic sense, right? It's putting yourself in a position to be able to say yes. Part of that is thinking through budgets, or which of these organizations I want to make my 50% or 25% and whatnot.
Yeah.
But if you constantly put yourself in a position to say yes, after doing this for many years, Wally.
Generations.
And generations. You wind up with the level of
It's
success.
like Carl Sagan over here. Billions and billions of years.
Lifetimes and lifetimes. No, that I think is a
Maybe
couple
we'll
of
all
things
do sit-ups when we're done here.
I knew he was going to try to take his shirt off. Doesn't have to get competitive. Yeah, man. I find it brilliant, right? Like, I find the way that you approach it to be brilliant. To me, I had learned this early in my professional career that you can just get into the room with people that you normally wouldn't be able to get into the room with if you approach it from a level of service. The same way that you approached the producer. Now how you approach philanthropes.
Yeah.
And
Having
you can
fun
network
doing good.
Yeah. And it's obviously been very successful for you, Wally. I have to assume that you're a client here at JWB as well.
I am.
And I have to assume that you probably have some kind of strategic plan of how you diversify your investments and how you approach that. Can you kind of talk about how you see investing? And how
I got
you
to
see
tell you
planning
the
for future?
backstory. I've not told
Please.
you, and you may not know.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess it was '07. Frat boy Alex comes into my office.
Our president.
Yeah, and I believe the connection was made by my daughter Joyce.
Yeah.
Who knows you guys.
Yeah.
And will you talk to Alex Safakis? They're starting this company. And
No way.
Sure, I will. He sits in my office, and he describes to me, and you could probably figure the year. I'm almost certain the goal for the year was $30 million in acquisitions.
Yeah.
06,
Who knows?
07, I mean, that's a long time ago with
Yeah.
that little
Yeah.
dinky number. And I'm listening to this guy who's how many guys then? 24, 25?
Started at 23.
23, 24 years old. And he's telling me the story. I'm like, this is great, man. I duct tape my pockets. And I'll tell you the gospel truth. Within a year of that, I invested over $1 million, 1.3, in new construction that I put into lease options.
Oh, no way.
And I rode that up on paper to an extra over $250,000, and I wrote it down to zero. Had I taken that potential of $1 million in debt, 1.3, in '07 and put it in JWB,
Wow.
conservatively, 10 million?
Yeah.
Conservatively, 10
Yeah.
million.
I mean, 10% a year times, was it 13 years now?
Or if it was in notes, yes, but even more importantly, had I been buying
Assets,
at that
yeah.
point, it would have been 5 to 10 times.
It would have been a lot more than that, yeah.
Thanks. So,
you know, you should listen to more frat boys who come in and try to raid all of your
So
pockets. I think that's the takeaway here.
So I had to go broke from that. And then in the recovery, became a note holder, and then they also managed properties for me.
Fantastic. What other tools do you use to create wealth? Do you have any other strategies around that? Are you in the market, or are you taking a bath right now?
No, I have small amounts of mutual funds, but that's not my thing.
Okay.
No, I've always liked real estate. I always had done real estate poorly, to be honest. I mean, going all the way back to the early days of Jack's Rea and Ron LeGrand and all that sort of jazzmatazz. I was always involved in it. I was always aggressive in it. And there were years where I broke even.
Yeah.
Well,
I just wasn't good at it.
Well, but you came from such a background of such knowledge. I mean, there are folks out here who have nowhere near the experience that you would have in the home inspection side, but still you decide to go and work with another team of experts to take care of it. What's the main difference for you? Why do you do that?
With you specifically, I can tell you exactly. You've never missed a payment to anybody on anything. The way the team plays around here, everybody's a joy to be a part of. It's easy, it's fun, it's safe. I just do it. It doesn't require anything. When a note comes due, you get the call or the email, I don't even know what it is. Hey, you want to roll? Yeah, roll. You want to add to it? Yeah, I want to add to it. And it's
comparing that to the normal way to invest in real estate. I got to go out and find the deal. I got to renovate the deal. I got to manage the property, or I got to somehow figure out some opportunity to do private lending with some company or whatnot.
I believe, in fact, I know this because I learned this the hard way. You can earn more on your own than being an investor with JWB, and you can lose it all.
Yeah, that's true.
This is so predictable here. It's predictable. It's been predictable for more than a decade. Come here, drop off your money, okay, and come back and pick up more. All right. So,
awesome.
I'm a fan.
All right, I'm a fan too.
If I wasn't a fan, I wouldn't be here.
I'm a fan of everybody here in this room right now, as you know. How did you get to Jacksonville? Right, like you were a naval grad,
I got here as a Navy pilot in
you got here as a
1980.
Navy pilot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was it like compared to what you see now? We just were interviewing Matt Ford, CEO of JTA, and we were talking about autonomous vehicles coming. And
I'm aware,
and all that. So what was it like in 1980 versus where you see Jacksonville going to be in the next 5 years?
Well, when you look at the things that weren't here, then you could imagine what it may have been like then. There were no Jaguars. Downtown, though, we're still emerging. In 1980, we weren't even done declining.
Yeah.
It was interesting. We had tolls on the roads, and the place smelled bad. You know, Tom Missouri takes credit for both of those things, and so we're definitely moving in a good direction. I will tell you, having watched it now, 1980, how long is that? 40 years? Got your calculator? For 40 years. We're so close right now to downtown just popping. You know, but I've thought that sorta, that it may be a few times.
We thought that probably like 2005, 2006. You know, we all kind of thought, but it's different now, right?
So close.
Why do you think it's different right now?
I think the influx of good minds with money behind it.
Yep.
If you can have a great idea, if you can't fund it, it can't happen. You can bring money into town with a bad idea or no cooperation and support, and it's not going to work.
I think it's the cooperation and support as well. I mean, everybody now understands the value of a thriving downtown, whereas in the past, downtown didn't really have its own voice.
No.
You had all these stakeholders in different parts of, you know, the city that, well, what are my key constituents going to need first, rather than bringing everybody's values up when downtown thrives. And I feel like there was like a click, you know, call it a few years ago or whenever it was, and the leaders started to get that.
We're recovering after 40 years, really 50 years, from the transition to consolidated government.
Yeah.
That initial transition, it divested the tax base, and as soon as you divest the tax base, it sucked it all out of downtown. And I feel like we're really on the cusp of recovering from that generational transition.
Can we talk a little bit about the consolidated government? Because what I'm understanding now is that the way that decisions are made today is so much different than it was in the past. And in the past, we had city council that, you know, while it's a wonderful organization, we had 19 city council members who made all of those decisions or had a big impact on those decisions. And now we have government bodies like the Downtown Investment Authority that are able to speak. Do you see a major difference because of the way decisions are made like that?
Yeah, I think that's good. When they went to consolidate, I was not here prior to consolidated government, but having read a lot about it, the decisions downtown were made by people who were downtown. Once we divested, it wasn't that way. And DIA is the closest thing to what would have been a traditional Jacksonville bounded city council, city limit as opposed to a county limit.
Right.
So I like it.
Absolutely.
Still imperfect, but I like it.
It's noticeably better than where we were in 2006, 2005 timeframe when we had a thriving economy. Now we were kind of putting all the pieces of the puzzle together.
We're coming up on time, guys. I could have this conversation with both of you forever, right? Like, this has been really illuminating to see you put how it all correlates, your strategies of how everything kind of comes together with how you approach things and the success that it's brought you. I love this conversation on downtown and your perspective. Greg, I'm going to let you kind of take this thing away.
I just think this has been a great interview. It's kind of understood the magic of Wally Conway, right? I mean, everything that you kind of...
It's the blazer.
Well, and you would never take credit, and I know you're quick to deflect, but there's just such a... There's just a genuine want to serve others behind everything you do, and there's strategy behind it, even though you're trying to deflect it, right? It's that putting yourself in a position to say yes and to serve those people. And it's an honor to know you and call you a client, and I appreciate all the trust.
Appreciate you both.
Thanks, Wally.
Thank you.
All right.